It's going to be a short meeting. This was called kind of on an emergency basis because we felt that we should clarify the basic terminology at this meeting. And that we will do a more full workshop in November. But if we can understand the basic terminology, and then we can filter it down to the Sai centers. Because in the reporting, there seems to be a lot of confusion. And what this meeting is going to be, the objective of this meeting, is to clarify the basic terminology so that we are all on the same page, and so that in your reporting, there is less confusion. Otherwise, from time to time, as new office bearer come in, then they have a different definition, they have a different understanding. And the statistics that are reported become very, very difficult to interpret because they're using a different definition. So this must percolate right down to the ground level where everybody understands the basic terminology. And some of this terminology has been there for quite a long time. The members of the Education Committee have got another appointment, so we have to leave here by 11:15. So we will be very quick, but we want to resolve your doubts. So if you can have the first slide. And please feel free to interrupt, ask questions. Well, when we say Sai spiritual education, we mean it is a spiritual education that is based on the teachings of Sathya Sai Baba. And the Sathya Sai Baba is regarded as an avatar. That means that he is a divine manifestation. And it is his teachings. The purpose of SSE, Sai Spiritual Education, is to prepare the new generation of children to become the new leaders in the Sai Organization. That's one purpose. That means that they must understand the divinity of Sathya Sai Baba and the divinity of his teachings. So Sai Spiritual Education, SSE, is very specific. It must have in it Swami as an avatar. The divinity of Swami must be there. As opposed to Sathya Sai Education in Human Values. That is a modified program which focuses, as the title says, the focus is on human values. Sathya Sai Education in Human Values, SSEHV. So that is the fundamental distinction. Bal Vikas was the original term that was used. Bal Vikas, it was in fact Bal Vihar at the very beginning. Then it became Bal Vikas. It means blossoming of children. But Bal Vikas is not used in the international organization. It's a Sanskrit term and it is used in the Indian organization. And because early programs went from the Indian organization to the international organization, we tended to use the word Bal Vikas many, many years ago. At the very beginning, we used the word Bal Vikas. But then about 15, maybe 20 years ago, there was a resolution made at a conference here in Prashanti that the overseas programs will be known as Sai Spiritual Education, SSE. Now there's a little bit of confusion and we will talk about the terminology there. Sai Spiritual Education as opposed to Sathya Sai Education. Sathya Sai Education is an all-embracing term, as the term says. That is all the teachings of Sathya Sai Baba, which includes the books that have been written about Sathya Sai Baba, it includes his discourses, it includes Vahinis, it includes anything that happens under the overall umbrella of Sathya Sai Education. So these are three terms that we have to be very clear on. Sathya Sai Education, Sai Spiritual Education, and SSEHV. Now, are there any questions about this before we move on? So what we have got there is Sai Spiritual, SSE is a term used in the Sathya Sai International Organization for classes held in the Sai centers for the children of Sai devotees, but also for adults.
Uncle, if I may add to that, so the audience in Sathya Sai centers is changing. If you see the people who are coming into the Sathya Sai centers, they are not all devotees, correct? So SSE includes anyone who comes to center. So it could be Sai devotees or it could be not Sai devotees. However, those who are teaching, those who are coordinators, they must believe in the divinity of Swami. If you are not believing in Swami's message, I am God and so are you, please do not teach in SSE. But if you are a parent, you may or may not believe. That's okay. However, parents must know that our program believes in the divinity of Swami. You cannot tell parents, oh no, it's okay, we don't want to believe in God. No, this is not right. So our program believes in the divinity of Swami, but you may come to our program, you don't have to be a believer in the divinity of Sai Baba. But anybody who comes to SSC, they must believe in God. If you don't believe in God, this is not the program. Is it clear? So this is because the center membership is expanding. You cannot expect, in the old days, the centers were created by those who came to see Sai Baba, believe in him, went back. But now the center is growing. The people who are coming may be devotee, may not be. But your teachers, they must be. Your coordinators must be. When I say devotee, they must have faith in Swami's divinity and in their own divinity. Otherwise, please. Yeah.
We have to accept that we are not a proselytizing organization.
Right.
We are not seeking to convert anybody. We are about transformation, not about conversion.
Yes. We are not trying to make them devotees.
We are not trying to make them into devotees, but if they come to the Sai Center, the Sai Center activities are turning around Swami's divinity. We have his picture, or we have got his chair to show that he's present there. So it is about Sathya Sai Baba as an avatar. That has to be understood. So Sai spiritual education is for the children and for the adults, but there is no proselytizing. We don't want to convert anybody. They can participate with us. They don't believe in Swami, that's okay. But if they are taking part in the activities in the Sai Center, then the assumption of the Sai Center is the divinity of Sathya Sai Baba.
So just to add to what Uncle is saying, please, if you are a coordinator, office bearer, president, regional or national council president, or otherwise zone chair, we have to keep in mind, SSC is not a vehicle to make everybody devotee. No, that's not. So people coming to the Sathya Sai organization, they may be devotee, may not be. SSC is for all of them. However, SSC program believes in Swami's divinity. We teach based on that assumption. I just want to make one point very clear. Why is it so important? Is because when in our program we teach, I am God, so are you. All are God. How can you say that? Do you have first-hand experience of it? If you do, please let me know. I will make you the teacher of all the world. However, we are saying, I am God and so are you, because Swami told us. He told us, we believe in him, and so therefore we must have faith in him. Otherwise,
Saram Padan, Marianne, I just want to make one. I'm quite curious about what you all said. SSE came much later. You all agree. Bal Vikas is a term we used long ago.
the term.
Yes. It was never called Bal Vikas. Bal Vikas is the Chitvaina's.
Actually, Uncle, the first time that Swami met with the people, 9 ladies in Vrindavan, outside the interview room, he said the name Bal Vikas. And then
I accept that.
Yes.
Right. So my question here is, when I was the teacher for the first time when I went in 1981 for the first Bal Vikas camp. I'm sure some of you have been there. And Swami asked me, there are maybe about 500 ladies, one row of men. And I was sitting in front. Somebody asked me, you want to be a teacher? Yes, Swami, I want to be a teacher. What class can you take? I said, I'll take group 3, Swami. But the children are much more involved and I can teach them the basics of spirituality. That's okay. So what Swami said, since I've been a teacher, now I just want to say that SSE actually, as you well said, it is for the transformation with our children. And they are transformed. I've got 500 odd children under me who have passed and got certificates from SSIO of Malaysia. So what we are what to do is, the non-Sai devotees sometimes are a bit reluctant to come when they see the picture of Swami. So we appreciate that. And then we started off in the SSEHV. It's talking only about human values. We call it SS, but we continue on EHV. And this meant for people in the, the suburbs and all that, the poor people, etc. We try to tell them what truths and all the basic human values.
Okay, I think this is a very important point, that if there are non-diabetic children in your Sai center, do you convert the program to SSEHV or do you retain SSE? And the answer is very clear.
Yes.
That in the Sai center, it is SSE.
Agreed. Because there are a lot of non-Sai children coming to our classes. They're not Sai devotees. Nevertheless, I'm talking about our outreach programs. When you go out to the suburbs.
No, we're coming to SSEHV.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So as long as it is very clear, the difference between SSE and Bal Vikas has moved on to SSE, and what is SSE? Yes. SSE, Sai Spiritual Education, applies to children and to adults. The essential aspect of that is the divinity of Sathya Sai Baba as an avatar, that he is divine, that he is a divine manifestation.
So please, it is not that SSC is only for devotee children. That's not the case. Because I may be somebody who says it's okay, I'm not objecting to your program believing in Sai Baba, I would like to come. So please don't say to people, go away if you're not devotee. Or don't tell them, if you come, we'll make you devotee. Slowly you will become devotee. So please, this is not a tool to make people into devotees or turn away non-devotees. This is not the
transfer.
Yes. So in your centers, you can welcome anyone. Only you have to let them know we believe in Swami. That's all.
It is like a person going to a church.
Yes.
They go into a church, they obviously, the divinity of Christ is there, and you accept for the moment that that's there. You may want to go there and learn something useful from the church sermon, but it's up to you. You may be a non-Christian who's gone into a church, right? So it's the same thing. A non-devotee can come into our Sai center, that's fine, we welcome. But there is no attempt to convert that person into a Sai devotee, becoming a Sai devotee.
In some centers, this is a challenge because the teachers feel that those who are coming will be intimidated if they see Sai Baba's picture. And so they take away the picture. Or they feel we must put it because we must tell them that we are believer or something. Please use discrimination. You may believe, but you don't have to force others to believe. So you don't have to be overzealous on one side or the other. Our program is about self-transformation. We have a whole recommendation and guidelines and a lot of material on how to deliver the program in a way that is acceptable to everyone.
We move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so Sathya Sai Education Human Values, the term used to describe a variety of programs, and we will elaborate on that. A variety of programs. It's also a term used to describe the programs of instruction in the Sai schools and for any after-hours program in the community. That means that SSEHV is really a separate program. It is focused on human values. The axiology, the origin of human values in the Sai Organization is the concept of divinity. That is the fundamental. We say that human values are manifestation of divinity. But we don't again push that. It's the 5 human values, which are aspect of our own personality development. And SSEHV program is a lot of varieties of programs. And we will discuss that in detail.
I just want to say that the SSEHV is building on the universal human values, what we all have in common. This universal love energy which binds us together. So this is where we can manifest the spiritual aspects in the SSEHV program.
Okay, so we can have SSEHV projects, we can have SSEHV programs, we can have SSEHV workshops. That means that the underlying principle of that is a focus on human values, and the outcome of that is human transformation. So that is important. We say that any module of Sathya Sai education is not successful if there isn't transformation. Transformation is the underlying dynamic of all Sathya Sai education human values programs, workshops, projects. So transformation is the measure of your success. And a human transformation is the ingredient that if it is lacking, then it is not a successful program. Okay? Clear? What is SSEHV? So it's focused on 5 human values for transformation, for spiritual transformation. Next slide. Okay, so now we can have community projects. There's a variety of community projects for the youth, for the teens, for the adults, and they're being offered in any community, any neighborhood by trained SSEHV teachers. Now we're coming to a very important point. Who is going to deliver SSEHV programs? Currently, we have got a little bit of a definitional problem about the teacher, SSEHV teacher. According to our definition, the Education Committee definition, SSEHV teacher is one who has been through an SSEHV training program, the diploma program. They may not have the full diploma program, but they must have at least completed two units, the introductory and the intermediate course. The diploma is more advanced training, but the introductory and the intermediate course must be covered for an SSEHV teacher. That's how we define an SSEHV teacher. Okay? So the programs are delivered by SSEHV teachers, and they take place in any location. They can take place in a workshop outside, they can take place in the Sai Center, they can take place at your home, they can take place in the school, they can take place in the institute, they can take place anywhere. But as long as the essential ingredient is the focus on human values, with the outcome that we are aiming is the transformation. Deeper understanding of human values, spiritual connection with their own core and with the values. Okay? So now individual, it can be in a SSEHV programs can be in the schools. They can be an individual class. There can be a whole school program. There can be a community program. And now with what we're doing, the adopted communities, and there are people who are doing some kind of training on SSEHV in the 95 projects that we are trying to identify. There is also an emphasis on SSEHV in these 95 projects. But we are not very clear who is going to deliver them. You know, this is going to be discussed fully in November. We want to discuss that because when we are collecting the statistics on SSEHV teachers, SSE teachers, how do we define that? What is the quality of training that they've gone through? Are they trained? Are they undergoing training? Are they just sitting and observing and then become SSE teachers or SSEHV teachers? This is something that we will talk about in November. It's a more complex topic because in your reporting you are required to report how many SSEHV teachers, how many SSE teachers. And I think that the definition there is very important, and we don't have the time to go through that at this particular workshop. We just want to do a basic understanding on SSE, SSEHV, Bal Vikas, and the various projects. Next one. So specialized workshops. You could have, let's say you are running a workshop on happiness, let's say. And there may be a series of workshops on happiness, ending up in meditation. They are all SSEHV as long as they are interconnected into one and you've got very defined outcome from that. So it's a whole project or a workshop based on a series of workshops, still SSEHV. Okay? So we can have specialized workshops. There's any audience by SSEHV trained people. Examples are leadership skills, workplace dynamics, parenting, health issues, healthy eating, etc., etc. You could have any of these projects, and many people have these projects going in their communities. Okay? And Sathya Sai Education, human values, the term, I'm just summarizing it, it's a term used to describe a variety of programs of spiritual instruction to the children of non-devotees. It's also a term used to describe programs in Sai schools. So what do we do in Sai schools? We are not converting children into devotees. In the Sathya Sai schools, we are not basically trying to produce devotees. We are trying to produce good human beings who are connected with their values and who will serve their communities. So we should be very clear that the school is not the place for trying to convert children into Sai devotees. Okay, last one. Sathya Sai Education. Now, if you take the acronym SSE for Sathya Sai Education, you get very confused. So we don't have an acronym for Sathya Sai Education. Sathya Sai Education is the totality. Radio Sai is part of it. Sanatana Sarathi is part of it. Books written on all the diploma course, all the advanced diploma course, all the theses that have been written, all the books that have been written, story books, you know, experiences Swami, they're all Sathya Sai Education. So we don't use an acronym for that. Otherwise you get very confused. You'll end up with SSE, which has two meanings. We do not use acronym for that.
Can one person become the teacher, SSE teacher, without going under the training, as what you mentioned?
You're talking about SSE.
SSE.
So
I understand we have so many centers, and we have a lot of Bal Vikas teacher in the center.
You have SSE teachers.
SSE teacher, yeah. But many of them has not gone under the training. Can they still remain as a Bal Vikas teacher?
Good question. So the Sai Spiritual Education SSC program is the responsibility of the National Education Coordinator. So if you have a national council in your country, the national coordinator is responsible. The national coordinator must have a training program for all SSC teachers in the country. If your teachers are not trained, that means national coordinator is not doing their job fully. If they have an issue with getting training material or training program, they could talk to me. I'd be happy to work with them. But all SSC teachers must be trained. If they're not trained, they're not teaching SSC program. Many times they're teaching something they think and imagine. So we want to bring consistency between what SSC is spoken and what SSC is happening in the classroom. So to bring that, you must have training. We do not have one standardized training as yet for everyone, because many countries have cultural specific things for their culture. However, we do have from the 2015 conference, SSC conference, we have recommendations and we have a program, a basis on which you should train. It's pretty well defined. I've been doing a lot of work on it. So if any of your national education coordinators have questions on SSC, please feel free to let them know to talk. We can have a webinar or follow-up conference calls.
Like for SSC,
yes,
I think that there should not be any problem with different cultures, because we are teaching Sai spiritual education, so it should be standardized.
Sir, can you please stand up? We will recognize him. This is true, that we should be teaching about self-transformation. However, if you look across the board today, everyone understands that word in different ways.
Yes.
So that is the problem.
Yes.
Everybody is very sincere and they're well-meaning, and they think they are doing the same thing as everybody else. But if you go and see, let me give you a basis on which there's differences. Please, I didn't mean to. I just wanted to say is correct is we need to have uniformity. So many programs, they base on teaching children prayers. This is the central focus of the program. Or it may be bhajans, that may be the central focus. Or some of them service. So these are not Sai spiritual education programs. They are bhajan class, Veda class, prayer class, right? Service class. You should call the name what you are doing. If you call Sai spiritual education, it is about self-transformation. How should I transform myself? And Swami, we are very fortunate, he said, choose only one teaching anything and help them learn how to do it, you'll be successful. So, if you're training your teachers on prayer teaching, bhajan teaching, then please call your class Sai Spiritual Bhajan class, Sai Spiritual Veda class, Sai Spiritual whatever. Some teach Bhagavad Gita. Please call it Sai Spiritual Bhagavad Gita class.
We can make this topic in November if you want to know more about this.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yes,
Please.
there was another question, Mahendra.
Sarah, what we in Malaysia, we got about 200 teachers, 185 teachers, we got about 4,000 students. What what we actually are doing is that we got every 3 months once we have train the trainers program, and whoever comes in, new devotees come to teach, we put them as an assistant to help the teacher. So they will be assisting the principal teacher, and within that 3 months we'll have another training where they will partake in that training and they become a teacher. But without going through the training, they cannot be an actual teacher in the class.
I think it is important that there is training, that you cannot become an SSE guru or a teacher without undergoing training. So training is important, and Srinivas is available to do a webinar training anytime you need, with arrangement with him. So training first. Now I want to come to the training for SSEHV. The training for SSEHV is the responsibility of the institutes, whereas the SSE, Sai Spiritual Education, the training is the responsibility of the National Education Coordinator. The training of SSEHV workers is the responsibility of the institute, because all the projects, SSEHV initiatives in the community should be under the guidance of an institute. There should be accountability to the institute. They should be done in collaboration with the institute. So the institute is the one that will orchestrate the initiative, the quality control, the training of the SSEHV workers and so forth. So the institute has a very important role. Now you may ask what happens in the countries where there are no institutes. Well, we would recommend that they go to another country where there is an institute and get the necessary training. And it is very important to have proper training in SSEHV before projects are launched. It is very, very important that the quality is there, because I think when we undertake a project and the quality is not there, then we do disservice. We can actually shoot ourselves in the foot, because people become suspicious when the programs are not carefully thought through, the outcomes are not carefully analyzed, the delivery is suboptimal, the standards are not there, then people actually say, you know, what are they doing? So it has to be undertaken by trained people in the community. And the language is different. We don't take the idea of, you know, we have come to save you. We are not missionaries. SSEHV workers are not missionaries. They are the servants of the community where they live. So they have to understand the cultural context. They have to put the language that is the current in the community, and they have to take the programs that are contextualized to the needs of the community. Service of need. It's an educational service. It's a service of need, not service of convenience. Right? So it's a service of a very high order, but it has to be delivered properly. Like all service, we have to deliver it properly. Now, we are really running short of time, so unless there are very important questions, I say that we will do a full workshop later on in the year in November.
We have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes.
We have 10 minutes?
Dr. Bal,
Yeah.
Okay, just.
We have 10 minutes.
Dr. Dhall, this is really very helpful to have this with these definitions with such clarity. Can that be put on a one-pager for us?
Yes, it's in the guidelines.
Right,
It's in the guidelines.
The same one.
Yes, in the guidelines it's there.
We can send this PowerPoint.
Yes, that would be helpful to be able to talk to.
It's in the guidelines, operations manuals, the updated guidelines. It's
But in a form that we can use as a presentation.
This
We can just
presentation.
stick to it.
This presentation is available.
Yes.
And it's also as introductions to the questionnaire that was sent out about SSEHV, collecting the SSEHV projects. You have the full explanation there also. But of course, it could be good to put everything together somehow in a separate document, so that when you are going to report, you have it as easy a reference that you it's more helpful for you. We can think of that. Yes.
Or if you want this presentation for discussion in your Sai centers or wherever, it's available. Okay, so we can send it.
Sai Ram, one thing that we haven't covered and might be of interest is that in Brazil, they developed a program to motivate parents to bring their children to the SSE classes. And maybe Sergio would like to tell just a little bit about that program, because it was a national program, and it was motivating the parents. You want to say something, Sergio, about that?
It was good to hear that in Sai Center there is no children can be SSE classes for adults. So you said that no?
Sorry, say that again?
In Sai Centers there are no children for SSE classes. SSE may be conducted to the adults. And in Brazil there are many centers that has no children, unfortunately, and they made 3 regional conferences to motivate people to training, motivate people to start working with children, and it was the result was very impressive.
So study circle is an example of that too. You know, a study circle based on Swami's teachings is an example of.
Chairman, can I say something? I really would like to consider on the parents' side. See, most of the parents come, they leave the children, they go off for shopping, whatever. But we trying to induce them come for the parenting sessions, so that they are there and we parent sessions talk about human values and the need for transformation at home. That's important for us to make them realize that they're not just dumping the children out in SSE classes and going for shopping or whatever.
Okay. Actually, if you see the new guidelines, the updated guidelines, and Dr. Reddy also mentioned, he wishes that Sathya Sai education of SSIO includes study for parents,
Yes.
parent education, children education, officer education. The whole idea of self-transformation is not limited or outsourced to the children. It's not a children's class.
Yes.
It's a self-transformation program. It is self-transformation program delivered for children. Self-transformation program delivered for parents. Self-transformation program delivered to officers. If you make it only a children's program, the children come and see what the adults are behaving in the center and they run away in the other direction. They go home and see the parents and they say, "Ay, my God, this is terrible. We cannot go. The confusion for them is too much." So just like the young adult leadership program started at Sathya Sai Young Adult Leadership, now it is Sathya Sai International Leadership Program for young adults. Sathya Sai International Program for others. That's what they are doing. So it's our program. SSE is for self-transformation, for parents, for children, for coordinators, for officers, like that.
So I said at the beginning, any Sai educational program is very purposeful, and the purpose is transformation. Without that, it's not entertainment.
Yes.
It's not pointless. So there has to be really very carefully thought out outcomes, objectives, and the objectives are really transformation. Maybe in little ways, but the transformation must be there.
Oh yes, please, Marianne. Go ahead.
I just want to add something, and we can elaborate more on that in November, and also send out some communications line how we collect the information, because at the moment SSEHV is somehow reported, some projects are reported by the Sathya Sai Organization, but these information are not coming to the educational committee, and from now on we will have to fill in that part of the survey. How many SSEHV projects do we have as SSEHV teachers and things like that. And other information, additionally we have information from the Institute, because most of the SSEHV projects are under the guidance and protection of the Institute in the country, so the Institute will provide these information. So we have to see how can we just collect all this different information, and it's important whenever you have SSEHV projects, whether it is run by the Institute or it is somehow run in cooperation with the Institute and the Sathya Sai Organization, where it is the Sathya Sai Organization who is reporting about the projects, that the information goes to the Education Committee, because we will have to verify and provide these numbers, and we cannot do it at the moment because simply we don't have all information. We saw when we were asking for the questionnaire, all the beautiful projects that were being done worldwide, we didn't know about half of them. And it was so wonderful and it was so inspiring, and one of our objectives is to share this information with other zones. And so it's not only for reporting, so we have numbers, but it is for sharing, it is for learning, and this is so important. So we have to be in contact, and I will be bothering you from time to time with emails. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for bothering me.
Thank you. Unfortunately, one or two comments, but we are pushing for time.
I just wanted to say that there is a confusion because, like, just take example of El Salvador. We've had 27 90-hour teacher training diploma courses. So that's over 1,000 teachers that have been trained. Now when we get a questionnaire and it says, how many SSE teachers do you have trained? Well, okay, 1,000. But that's not the answer. The answer that you're looking for is how many Sathya Sai teachers do we have in the Institute who are working with the Institute, who are being trained. You see what I mean? So there has to be some distinction.
These are two different boxes. Yeah. And this is, part of this will be filled in by the Education Committee. So we need both. Okay?
Okay, center.
It should be clarified in the...
Well, I think that, John, that's a very important question, because there could be a lot of people trained, but they're not actively engaged.
We have to be at the university at a session with the young adults in 15 minutes. So really, we are so sorry that we have to leave you now, because now it's become very interesting, and I really think we should meet again and come together.
One last question.
Okay.
Please.
Sai, I'm sorry to take the time, but perhaps maybe I'll ask the question and then you can clarify it in November.
Yeah.
The question is that in Canada, when working with school boards or people meet with such individuals, the word spirituality means different as well. You can meet people where the word spirituality may be devoid of divinity. And in the definition for educare and in SSEHV, the word spirituality or raising the inherent divinity in one is present. And so then the question is, how do we don't want to skirt the issue. It certainly is self-transformation, but if we want to put a printed material and give it to them, we would like some clarification on that.
So maybe I ask everybody, would you like to have a webinar, online conversation by Zoom? Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. We agree. Okay.
Okay, we'll arrange that. We'll arrange that. And I will send this PowerPoint to all the zone chairs.
Yes, so you go zone by zone and work with me, because that might be easier.